as Stephen Castellano strode down the hallway. It made sense because this was the beginning of a game Drew had been working on for 20 years. It was a game Castellano wouldn't know he was playing until he'd already lost. "You the lawyers?" Castellano didn't waste time on politeness. He was a man past his prime, and the photos Drew had of him hadn't done his florid face justice. Craggy and lined, his face bore the marks of long nights spent partying. According to everything they knew about the man, his love of women and booze had cost him 2 marriages and the majority of the fortune he'd come into exactly 2 months after Benedict Lawless and his wife had been murdered. Riley wondered if wife number 3 knew the truth about her husband's cash. Castellano had made his money the old-fashioned way. He'd murdered and stolen for it. An IPO had been much more important to Castellano than a good man's life. Yeah, that was going to cost him, too. Riley got to his feet and put out a hand. The thought of touching the man disgusted him, but he was willing to do just about anything to get his foot in this particular door. "Riley Lang, this is my associate Andy Hoover. I thought we were meeting with Ms. Stratton." Castellano studied them through narrowed eyes. "Yeah, well, I always like to know my enemies." He stopped on Drew. "You look familiar?" Drew looked most like their father, though not a single one of the kids was a carbon copy. Drew and Mia had inherited their father's sandy hair coloring and blue eyes, while Riley and Bran had darker hair and green eyes. It was more likely Castellano had seen one of the few photographs reporters had managed to take of the infamous Andrew Lawless, reclusive billionaire software developer. At the tender age of 23, Drew had built the firewall system almost every corporation now used, including StratCast. Drew had used the money to put them all through college, and he'd used the teeny-tiny back door he'd left in his software to spy on his enemies, starting with Castellano. Drew remained perfectly cool. "I've been told I look an awful lot like that actor who plays Thor. I promise not to throw a hammer your way, though." No, Riley was sure Drew would much rather use a knife on the man, or leave him to burn to death, like Castellano had left their father. Castellano shrugged. "Right, I appreciate that. And I thought this was a friendly buyout." Riley was ready to do anything to turn his attention away from how familiar Drew looked. They'd done their level best to keep his profile as low as possible, but a few shots had gotten out. "It is," Castellano assured them. "The company is in good hands with Ellie, but I need a comfortable retirement. It should be an easy transition, but I want to ensure everything is done properly and above board. That's why we're getting 2 sets of sharks involved. I mean lawyers, of course. I don't want anyone to be able to challenge Ellie for what's rightfully hers. She's been through a lot in the last year, and I don't want this to be stressful for her. My own lawyers will be here this afternoon, and I wanted to warn you. I'm paying for the best." He wasn't. He was paying for a middling firm because, according to the information they'd accumulated on the man, he was damn near broke. This man had killed Riley's father over a public stock offering, made millions of dollars off it, and then wasted it on booze and hookers. Riley was going to make sure he didn't make millions more, and he intended to make sure StratCast was completely ruined at the end of this game. The company had been founded with blood money, and he was going to bring it down. "Well, I'll consider myself warned." Castellano's eyes narrowed. "Here's another warning. Take care of Ellie. Like I said, between her father's death and the divorce she went through, she's had enough to deal with." "This was her idea to hire you." "The attorney who had represented her dad retired recently. He recommended you. I've never heard of you." Her father's attorney had happily given in to their blackmail scheme. Once Robert Danford Esquire had realized they had evidence that he'd cheated his partners out of more than $1 million, he'd smiled